appreciate the conversation that you have had with the chairman of this committee as well as the chairman of the Education Committee. That dialogue, continued dialogue, is truly essential, particularly in light of the fact that we are seeing a massive influx of federal dollars into our budget. Having served as a school board director, coming into that position after the massive amount of federal revenue into the system back in, I guess it was 2008 or 2009. I think it was, 2009 when Congress and then Obama administration approved that stimulus package, making sure that those dollars are truly used for one-time spending, maintaining those guardrails. I know I've sent a letter to all of the school board directors in my Senate district to gently remind that we get ourselves into trouble if we use one-time dollars for recurring expenses. So I appreciate the conversation. I want to shift gears a little bit. In light of the pandemic, where we have seen many more school systems engaging online, our school data systems, which contain vast amounts of our students' personal information, have seen their servers subjected to harmful cyber attacks and attempted cyber attacks. And Pennsylvania schools have been targeted many times with publicly disclosed data breaches, and this is going back 16 plus years. In the past year, hackers have ratcheted up their attacks on our schools in an effort to make money by employing ransomware. And as you know, ransomware is a type of malicious software designed to block access to a computer system until a sum of money is paid. So as the chair of the Senate Communications and Technology Committee, this is something that the committee will address this session. In fact, our K-12 schools, not our businesses, but our K-12 schools are now reported by CBS News to be the leading target of ransomware attacks. Single incident school payouts to these hackers have reached as high as $1.5 million. We understand our schools have been easy targets for ransomware. According to a report by IBM, educators and students lack training in how to deal with such attacks. And while most educators said they rely on virtual and remote learning tools, 60% of educators say they have received no additional security training during the pandemic, and half of the respondents to that IBM survey and report, they indicated they had not received any cybersecurity training. Can you share what the department is doing in terms of programs and resources that are available to train and support our local school districts, their staff, their students in effective cybersecurity practices?
Senator Phillips-Hill, again, thank you. And I do want to preface my comments with one request: to be invited into the discussions with regards to what is happening around cybersecurity and cyber attacks, because this is an issue that is of extreme importance. And I think now that we're seeing this influx of dollars, particularly federal dollars coming in, we should be prepared to see what kind of malicious, I won't say just software, but individuals that we're going to have to make sure that we're prepared to fend off. In fact, I recall a conversation that I'd had with a university that had said to me 3 years ago, a professor stood up and said, do you know that the department should really be looking on cyber security training for all its teachers? And I thought at the time, that's interesting. And then now that we find ourselves in this situation, you're right. I want to invite Deputy Mariano to share with you a few things that we've done, and this is not the best efforts, but these are some of the efforts that have emerged in a summit that we hold every year that Deputy Mariano and her team put together, where this discussion comes up quite regularly. Deputy Mariano.
Thank you, Secretary Ortega. Good morning, Senator. This is definitely a growing issue for all of our LEAs, and unfortunately, we have seen schools struggle with the scenarios that you referenced regarding ransomware and things like that, and have even, provided some guidance where we can when schools reach out with some of the Commonwealth resources and their security experts. But we do need to be careful with that, of course, because each scenario is different. You really need to have folks on the ground addressing it. In terms of the data summit that the secretary referenced, we do have that annually, and this year, in recognition of the significant shift for a lot of our schools to online and virtual environments, and just the massive influx of technology and a lot of issues, we're dedicating many of our sessions to the subject of security, safety, and those kinds of topics. And we get an audience of not just the data folks, the people that manage the data at the school districts, but also administrators. In fact, we had the highest enrollment of administrators of any data summit this year. So we're really looking to put that message out there to the entire, administrative body at the school district, because, obviously it's an issue that needs that collaboration. It can't just be limited to those who are responsible for the data or the IT. So we're really hoping, we've gotten a tremendous interest in those topics from our schools. We really hope to continue to do that work and to find opportunities to provide that training. We provide, we bring experts in the field in cybersecurity to do these trainings. So we want them to get the best information possible. But that's just an example of some of the things we've attempted to do in recognizing this challenge.
I appreciate that, and certainly, the department pushes out best practices, whether it's for curriculum. We have worked on things like educating students about the Holocaust and setting up best practices that school districts can adopt. So if there is a way that the department can push out best practices and to have the programs that you utilize incorporate measures to determine the effectiveness of that training and those best practices as implemented by the districts, I think that would be really helpful. In terms of the programs that you have been running, is there any way you can determine how successful they have been in repelling these attacks, preventing disclosure of personal student data, and also your employees' data, and very concerned about fast recovery from those attacks? Can you speak to that?
Sure, and I think, when it goes beyond the level of attendance and presence, I'm not sure if we've done a whole lot of follow-up, Senator, with regards to measuring the efficacy of that training in the schools. But I won't speak unless, Danielle, is there something that you think is elevated as a measure in terms of outcomes?
Well, we actually have enhanced some of our feedback that we're looking to get from schools this year at the Data Summit by asking them specific questions related to a rubric on best practices for data management, of which security would be a piece. So that's really just a first initial step. I agree that additional work around outcomes is certainly warranted. And again, in terms of how quickly schools can come back and recover from these attacks is often related to resources and the sophistication of the school itself, and how many folks they have to kind of assist, and whether they can have access to insurance policies and bring some experts in and things of that nature.
I appreciate that conversation and look forward to continuing the conversation, working with you and your team, because I do think that this is very, very important, especially when what we have seen over this year is that the school districts with some of the lowest amount of resources found themselves predominantly online. So I thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.